I'll start this summation with contingency leadership theory. According to Achua and Lucier, contingency leadership theories contend that there is not one and only leadership style for every given situation. Chapter 1 in our text defines leadership theory as an explanation of some aspect of leadership. Theories have practical value because they are used to better understand, predict, and control successful leadership. A leadership model is an example to emulate a given situation. For a leader to be effective, there has to be a balanced relationship between the leader's behavior and style and his or her followers and the given situation. Chapter 1 of our text reminds us that contingency leadership theories are an attempt to explain the appropriate leadership style based on 3 factors: the leader, followers, and the situation. A bit of history about contingency leadership theory. Fred Fiedler began to develop this theory in the 50s. It was the very first theory to delve into how situational variables react to leader personalities and behaviors. He originally called this the contingency theory of leader effectiveness. So the first factor in using Fiedler's model is to determine whether your leadership style is task or job motivated or employee relationship motivated. In order to determine this, the leader has to fill out the LPC scale, the least preferred coworker scale, which helps the leader to understand if he or she is more task or relationship oriented. After you do that, you have to look at situational favorableness. And that means the degree to which a situation enables the leader to exert influence over the followers, according to Achua and Lucier. The more influence a leader has over his or her subordinates, the more favorable will be the situation for the leader. There are 3 variables in determining this. The first one is the leader-member relations, which asks the leader to decide if this certain relationship is good or poor, if there is respect, acceptance, and trust, and confidence in the leader. And again, the better the relationship, the more favorable the situation is for the leader. The second is task structure. Is the task structured or unstructured? Do the employees do the same repetitive, unchallenging routines all the time? The more structured the jobs are, the more favorable the situation. And the last variable is position power. Does the leader have a strong or a weak position of power to assign work, to reward, to punish, to give raises and promotions? And the more power that leader has, the more favorable the situation. The next step is determining the appropriate leadership style. In order to do that, using Fiedler's contingency theory model, you have to answer 3 questions. Start with question 1, and you follow this tree diagram to good or poor, depending upon the relationship. Next, you answer the second question, and you follow the tree down to whether a task is repetitive or non-repetitive, and then you answer the third question and end up with 1 of 8 possible situations. If the LPC style matches, you do nothing, since that may indicate that the leader's already in a successful situation. However, if the leadership style does not match the situation, the leader may end up being ineffective. Fiedler recommends people to change the situation rather than change a leadership style, although you can change the job that matches the leadership style. Overall, Fiedler's work was criticized for weak statistical results, and that Fiedler's view that leaders should not change style but should change the context of the job instead has not been widely accepted. It is generally accepted that it's much easier to change a leadership style to meet the context of the job than to change the job context. But despite any criticisms that reviewers had of Fiedler's contingency theory, it contributed a great deal to other contingency theories. Continuing on to the continuum theory model, Robert excuse me. Robert Tannenbaum and Warren Schmidt developed contingency theories as well at the same time in the 1950s. Their thought was that behavior is on a continuum from leader-centered to employee-centered. And their model primarily focused on who makes the decision. Before selecting one of their 7 leadership styles, the leader has to consider the following 3 forces: the boss, subordinates, and the situation. Is the boss's personality style based on experience, values, confidence, and the subordinates? Based on the boss's personality, some leaders are able to be more hands-off and others are very decisive and autocratic. The second is subordinates, and that's the follower's preferred style for the leader based on personality. If the followers are more willing to participate, the more freedom of participation should be allowed by the leadership. Situation or time considers environmental considerations, the organization structure, size, culture, technology. Time is also critical because it takes a lot more time to create a participative decision. So when time is of the essence, then the leader has to be much more autocratic in style. It was a popular model, but critics said that the 3 factors to consider, boss, subordinate, and situation, are very subjective, and it makes it very difficult to determine which style to use, when, and where. Path goal leadership. Leadership was developed by Robert House. He looked at theory from the point of view of situational moderators that affected task and employee-oriented situations. Task's goal was to attempt to explain how a leader's behavior influences his or her employees' performance and satisfaction. According to our text, the definition of path goal leadership is, a model is to select a leadership style which is directive, supportive, participative, or achievement oriented, which is most appropriate to the situation, the subordinate, and environment, and to maximize both performance and job satisfaction. Motivation is the responsibility of the leader. The leader is responsible for clarifying the employee's path to a reward and increasing the rewards that the employee will intrinsically desire and seek after. There are situational factors. Those are subordinate, environmental, and then there are leadership styles, directive, supportive, participative, achievement-oriented. And there was criticism of this theory as well. The results were mixed. The largest criticism was that it is very complex and difficult for managers to know which style when to use. And lastly, normative leadership. Normative leadership asks the question, when should the manager take the reins and make the decisions, and when should the manager allow the group to make the decisions? The definition of normative according to our text is the model is it's a time-driven, development-driven decision tree that enables the user to select one of 5 leadership styles appropriate for the situation. The leadership styles are decide, consult individually, consult the group, facilitate, delegate. And the model questions are decision significance, importance of commitment, leader expertise, likelihood of commitment, group support of objectives, group expertise, team competence. The time-driven and development-driven model is very critical because in the time-driven model, the values placed on time and no values placed on the development of the follower. And in the development-driven model, value is placed on the employee development and no value is placed on time. The criticism was that, again, because of all the criteria and the decision-making processes that have to go through, it is a cumbersome process and is in general just difficult for managers to use. Lastly, I would choose the path goal leadership theory to use in my organization for several reasons. One is that it is so much simpler than the other theories. There aren't as many steps to go through, there aren't as many variables to consider, but moreover, I want to use goal setting as one of my motivational theories, and path goal is based on goal setting and expectancy theory, so that would fit right in with the rest of my leadership plans, and I would be able to seamlessly institute this leadership theory in my PLCs and whatever other organizational tools I'm going to use to have my employees stay on task and feel that they have good reasons to make an effort and move forward, because they will be supported in attaining their personal goals, and in that light they will be moving forward to completing organizational goals.